Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is episode 282. This is the second in a series of 3 interviews where I talk to breakout shooters of 2019 in open, limited, and TAC Ops division to find out what makes them tick and how they got to where they are. This week is limited division and Mike Cattell. Mike has come on hot over the last couple of years. And although he now shoots every division possible in 3-gun and sometimes in the same match as he did at the Trad Natties in 2019, I think of Mike as a limited shooter because that's how I met him. Mike is a successful guy in his professional life, and he has a very focused and pragmatic way of looking at the sport of 3-gun that I think you're going to like. Before we get into that, I just want to say, man, it has been way too long. I'm sorry. I was gone. I'm back. I took the biggest break I've ever taken from the show, and in that time, a lot has happened. I moved to the great state of Wyoming, and Parker and I lived in a hotel for a few days before I was able to secure an apartment in Cheyenne while I was working, which was a lot of fun. Believe it or not, average rent here in Cheyenne is more expensive than it was in Round Rock, Texas. But the place I found is much nicer. For those of you who visited me in Round Rock, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I'm incredibly excited to live in a town with only 65,000 people. This place is pretty darn cool. And also much colder than Texas, by the way. And yes, I started a new job at Stag Arms. That's the reason I moved to Cheyenne. I am the marketing manager and one of the first 4 employees to stand up the organization in Cheyenne as we complete the move from Connecticut. So part of our marketing strategy this year is to be at 3-gun matches throughout the country, both as sponsor and shooters. Side note, the president of our company, Stag Arms, is a 3-gunner, which is pretty exciting to have someone like that you work for that understands the game and the passion that goes behind it. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, we plan to go to all these matches, plan to sponsor all these matches. And then the pandemic of 2020 hit. So COVID-19 has caused so much chaos in such a little time that this entire year of 3-gun is really jacked up. And I see like a lot of people moving their matches due to like quarantines and like space, restrictions. You got to leave 6 feet between you and your next person and stuff like that. Really kind of odd. Never seen anything like this before. Don't really know what to think about it. I'm stuck between it's bullshit and it's a vast government conspiracy and it's a chemical weapon attack from China. So those are my 3 competing theories right now. I have no idea what to believe. But what I do know is that you need the 3-gun show now more than ever. So we're back. Also, I turned 40 years old. Check out 3gunshowproshop.com for all your 3-gun needs. We're loading in new products all the time from a lot of your favorite brands, including JP Rifles and Vortex Optics. So think of us when making your off-season upgrades and email us if there's something that you want to get that you don't see. Just email Dave at 3gunshow.com. This podcast is brought to you by the good folks at JP Enterprises, the finest rifle components built by people that actually shoot the games that you do. They don't sell gimmicks, just the most accurate and softest shooting rifles that anyone could want, and they do it with a smile. After years of buying select JP parts to finish off my own builds, I finally own a JP rifle, an LRP 07 and 6.5 Creedmoor, and it is currently sleeping snugly in my safe right now. I recommend both of them, though. If you want to build yourself a new 3-gun blaster in the off-season, pick up a cryo-treated super match barrel and all the other go-fast parts from JP. If you're not into building and you just want to buy it now and be ready to race, JP's got you covered there, too. Either way, visit jprifles.com. And that's all I got from you now. So I'm going to record another podcast tomorrow as I record this here, and it'll be coming out in the next couple of days. But I do have one more coming up with the Breakout TAC Ops shooter of 2019, And then, of course, I've got one in the can with our buddy Riley Croft. I got another one with Dustin Sanchez of JP Rifles, who's going to teach us how to shoot some 308. So got some good ones coming up here. Stay tuned and enjoy this interview with the Three Gun Show's breakout limited shooter for 2019, Mike Cattell. Mike, welcome to the Three Gun Show.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you, man. So I've been shooting adjacent to you. I don't think we've ever shot in the same squad, but we've been shooting near each other for the last couple of years, and I've watched you crush some souls, and I'm pumped to have you on the show here, and we can talk about all the soul crushing that you've been doing.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think we have been squatted together, but I think we've spent a decent amount of time on the range, which has been fun. Yeah,
which is it's kind of funny now that I think about it. Like, you probably like the dude I've talked to the most and haven't shot with at all on the range,
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so great to have you on the show. So I know you on the range, and we've talked quite a bit. But let's introduce you to the audience here. So who's Mike Cattell when he's not shooting? When you're not on the range, what do you do?
Oh, well, as far as the necessary stuff, so you can have all the fun. I'm an entrepreneur. I own car washes and self-storage facilities. My dad has been doing that for 30 years, and he's handed over the ropes. I purchased some car washes 4 or 5 years ago from him, and I'm just kind of transitioning to the storage business. Have some kind of my own stuff going on in addition to continuing his legacy in the business. And as far as hobbies, I am a little bit of an avid hunter.
Yeah.
So pretty much anything. Birds, waterfowl I spend a lot of time chasing them, which is, I guess, a lot like Three Gun as far as camaraderie, because you don't necessarily have to be quiet. We enjoy sitting there and joking around, having a good time. I like the deer and all that stuff too. It's not quite as a group sport. So that's my other big passion besides just shooting is hunting. I do quite a bit of fishing. Obviously in Michigan, there we got a lot of water.
Yeah.
About 40 minutes from the closest one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. So my wife grew up fishing Lake Erie with her dad, and we continue that anytime we get a chance.
Nice. Well, yeah, so avid outdoorsman, I can tell, because you drove all the way down to Texas for the UML Traditional Nationals. You shot 2 divisions, and then you're like, as soon as we're done here, I'm packing up and I'm going hunting.
Yeah, and I did all the stuff, just like shooting 2 divisions. It was that crazy. We went to one ranch to hunt free-range aoudad sheep, and for a couple days. And then I think I was at our deer hunting camp for 8 hours to set some trail cameras and take a nap. And then we went to go hunt pigs at night with thermal. And then we went back deer hunting.
Nice.
So we love Texas, but unfortunately we can't live there for like 2 months. So it's kind of a craziness when we go down there. Got a lot of friends that do a lot of different things, and we try to fit it all in.
Yeah, that's really cool that you get the opportunity to travel like that. So when you're talking about entrepreneurship, so I knew that you were a business owner, and then again, the last time we were chatting here, we started talking about car washes and stuff, and I mentioned to you that one of my observations about Texas is there's not nearly as many car washes as there are in Colorado. And my hypothesis is that they don't put anything on the road that gets on your car in the wintertime that could possibly eat the steel, like in Michigan, right? So like do they salt the roads up there still?
Yes.
Colorado, they use,
today, which is a good thing for me. Very good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're like, yeah, put all that shit on the ground. In Colorado, they use magnesium chloride now. And, that stuff gets everywhere. And it's like actually it's nasty, like when he gets inside your house and everything. So you've got to wash your car all the time. And it's not like there are no car washes in Texas, but they're not nearly as many as there are in Colorado and I imagine Michigan. Now, since I mentioned that, did you notice that the rest of your trip?
Yeah, there's, kind of most of the smaller-ish towns, you'll find one spray it yourself deal in Texas. But like here, every town will have at least one, and it'll probably have one of the automatics with it. But like even a small town here will have 2 or 3. So yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, the place I lived last in Colorado, I lived in Littleton for like 8 years, and it didn't matter if you left my neighborhood and went left or right. If you went a mile and a half, you would hit 2 car washes either direction, and it was like that everywhere in the metro area. They're just absolutely everywhere. So when it takes a while around town here to figure out like, okay, where am I going to wash my truck? It just kind of makes me laugh. It's like that. They used to be everywhere.
Yeah, I always get a chuckle too when we're down there and it gets cold and they close.
Yeah,
I get it. Like they don't have we have our heated floors, so you don't slip all the time. You don't have to cover it with salt, and they don't have that. But it just, even knowing that, I just laugh every single time I see it. I can't help it.
Oh yeah, man. I remember the first time I lived in Texas. I lived in Bastrop, and I went to the gym one day, and it was just like me and another guy, and they were like, "Well, how was your drive here?" I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. Why?" And they're like, "Well, you didn't notice all the businesses are closed?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, no, I did not notice all the businesses were closed. But now that you mention it, I noticed there was no traffic. And why is that?" And they're like, "Well, it's below zero." And I thought, but it's not raining or snowing. It's just cold. And they closed like banks and schools and shit because it was cold.
That happened last year here, and because of wind chill, and it was, I guess the school thing, is one. But adults not being able to walk 50 yards into their heated building was like, I don't understand.
Well, maybe I get that in Michigan, because what's cold for you guys? Like -30, -40, something like that?
That's rare. That's like those poor fellows over there in Minnesota have to deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
I think like this day, the wind chill was like -30. But
oh, okay.
You don't get that very often here. Not where I am. In northern Michigan, especially the Upper Peninsula, that can be somewhat common with all the feet of snow.
Yeah. So,
but
do you guys have like an off season for 3-gun then? Are you guys kind of chilling out right now?
Yeah, we're pretty much like, I guess what you would call the quote main clubs. We have a bunch. We're fortunate to have a bunch of clubs. Some that run them differently, some with different levels of competition and whatnot. But essentially, the majority of our matches are basically from April until either September or October. And then there's pretty much, you might have one here or there. And we have a couple that start in like February, March. But for the most part, we're pretty much have an off season.
That's about what it was in Colorado, unless there was like 2 unseasonably warm weeks, and then everything was dry at the range, and guys were getting stir crazy. It's like, hey, we're gonna throw on one more here. Maybe we can attack it before the snow comes.
Yeah, I think actually last weekend one of the clubs had a night match, and everybody went and played with their night vision. I couldn't make it, but so they do during our big deer season, like gun season, is November 15th to the 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody does nothing then.
Well, it's only 15 days.
Yeah, the gun season's short here. Our archery season is October 1st to January 1st.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the gun season's short, and it gets kind of crazy.
Yeah, like every man for himself. Do they shut down schools and stuff like that?
Up north, they will have the day off school opening day. Not so much down here. It's a little bit, I guess, more city and not so much. I mean, everyone hunts around here, but the schools aren't going to acknowledge it.
Yeah. Nice. Well, the main topic we're here to talk about, not hunting, not car washes, is three guns. So let's switch it up a little bit. So, Mike, I've identified you as the breakout limited shooter of 2019 and probably some of 2018 as well. You've been on quite the hot streak for some time now. And I want to know, like, when did you get into practical shooting? Did you start in three gun, or have you always done some sort of practical shooting?
I guess depends on your definition of practical shooting. Competition shooting, no, I didn't start here. I think I shot like one IDPA match in, at least 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I didn't do it again. It was kind of fun, but I was young then and had all sorts of different hobbies. But for a while, I shot competitive sporting clays. Towards the end of high school, I was on a team that went to nationals for the state of Michigan twice, and did some just normal tournaments that are open to everybody. And so I got out of it for a while.
How long did you do that?
Real seriously, I did it for probably 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was, like I said, it was at the end of high school, and we were fortunate enough to have like a 5-time national champion was our coach. And so
Sweet.
We would get lessons free and clays free. We just had to pay for ammo. And so when real life hit in college and I was paying for everything myself, I stopped that a bit. And I've always wanted to kind of start doing it again, but then three gun came along and I've been focused on that. And we'll go do it every now and then for fun, but not competitively.
Gotcha. Now, do you feel like the lessons and the 3 years you spent doing that in your younger days help you out in shooting three gun now?
Yeah, I think my coach was very big on the mental game and visualization, which is, I mean, you're not running around. There's not all the different skill sets like three gun has. So that was pretty much all you could teach essentially. And I carry a lot of that into three gun and from those lessons that he taught us.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I had Joe Pitha on the podcast a couple years ago, and he shot international trap at the Olympic level. And you know, on its face, you're like, okay, well, so what sort of mental game is involved in that? You know, because you're like, just like you said, standing in one place, and it's the clay comes out and you shoot it, right? But when you think of like how many birds you have to string together, and then toward the end you're like, okay, well, it's almost done. I only got a couple left, and then like now you just let it fall apart. Like I can see how the level of concentration and focus actually gets to be difficult in that game.
Yeah, I actually don't think that I ever would have been that great at trap. I shot it a little bit. We shot kind of all the disciplines, 5 stand, skeet, trap, and sporting clays a little bit, but I think I only had one perfect round of 25 in trap ever, because it's now at the Olympic level, of course, it's much more difficult, but essentially it's the same target presentation. It's going away from you. Whereas for those that don't know, sporting clays they just do a lot of different things. It's kind of like they call it golf with a shotgun.
Yeah.
You have targets going every which way, different flight paths, different thrown in different ways.
Coming at you, they're low, they're high, they're going away from you, they're side to side, there's rabbits.
Yep. And so that was, I guess, kept my attention a little bit better. Like I raced for a little while, and I was a drag racer. I don't think I would have been, I wasn't that great at that at all, but I don't think I would have been any good at like circle track. Kind of like I compare that kind of like to trap. It requires a different level of focus for sure. And I'm not sure that I was capable of that. I don't know if I still would be. Sounds like a difficult proposition. It's very, very high level of mental focus and visualization. And
Well, it's funny. Like practical shooting and three gun is often compared to drag racing. You know, because I mean, buzzer goes off, you react fast, and then you burn it down as quickly as possible, and then go back to the pits.
Yep. pretty similar. Everything happens fast, and you gotta make quick decisions. And I mean, I guess that's with any racing, but it's pretty good analogy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so you shot for a number of years, then life happened. You had to grow up and pay for your own ammo and stuff like that, and then eventually you discovered three gun.
Yeah, and I don't really even know how I did, to be honest with you. I don't know if I just heard of it and kind of knew it was a thing or what. And I remember thinking, like, I should check that out and go watch a match or something for several years probably. And maybe a couple, and I forgot about it. I think I asked like one buddy, hey, you want to go try this one time? And we just never did it. And then I was just, I don't know, it just came to me one day. I said I should look back into that. And I was just sitting around, and my wife was going on a work trip, I think it was, and Kupika's match is like 30 minutes from me, and they had one that weekend. I said, well, I got nothing better to do. I'm just going to go watch. And everyone was obviously nice. Everyone that's shot three gun knows how welcoming everyone is.
Yeah.
They could probably see the confused look on my face and kind of explained a bunch of stuff to me. But even at that point, like when I first thought about it, I was watching some of the old 3GN videos and stuff of the Pro Series, and I didn't know. Like, I didn't know if everyone was like that. I had no idea that there were 10% shooters and 100% shooters. I had no idea. So it was intimidating to even go watch. But as soon as I got there, you quickly learn that there's all types of people, all different skill levels, and everyone is very, very welcoming, and that was about that. I think that night I probably ordered all the parts to build my rifle, and that's just went from there. I've been known to not do anything half-ass. My wife will make fun of me for it. So yeah, I guess you can consider. No, actually, I just bought a scope, and I bought some stuff for a Bushmaster I had sitting around. I remember this now. And I bought a SIG 320X5, and I used one of my bird shotguns. And I went to my first match. And then I think it was the night of my first match when I bought all the fancy parts to build a new rifle. And about, I think 2 weeks later, I couldn't handle it anymore. And I had an STI DVC 3 gun on the way. And so, yeah, I kind of just always jump in,
Yeah,
full feet into a hobby.
yeah, I love it, man. So it's funny because like there's levels, right? You know, like I go to most club matches, especially the ones I went to back in Colorado. Like it's a little bit different here in the Austin area, especially at the TSA range, because it's, you know, one of the owners of the range is also an owner of Hayes Custom Guns. So you see a lot of 2011s rolling around there. But back when I was shooting in Colorado, like if you had a 2011, it was like unusual. You know, everyone else had Glocks, right? So my, you know, first couple years of shooting major matches and traveling around with the three gun show, you know, I'm sitting here with what I think is like the coolest Glock 34 on the planet, you know, because it's got a trigger and a magwell and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect gun for the game. And meanwhile, everyone else is like, oh man, you can't afford a 2011, huh? I'm like, well, why would I want that? I have a Glock 34. It's the best gun for the game, you know. So there, and you know, there's dudes you go out and see still shooting like their DPMS heavy barrel varmint rifles with you know, a 1-4 scope and stuff. And it's fun. That I love club matches because you get to see all that type of stuff and all the different levels of participation. The guy that, you know, goes there once a year when his son comes home from the army, and then there's the, you know, the old dude that's been doing it for years and has like all the vintage gear and he refuses to buy anything new, and then there's the guy like you that just went out and bought every single new thing that he could, and now he's out there shooting. So I love the cool variety at club matches. It's a lot of fun.
I enjoy that too, and we try to. I'm sure this probably happens everywhere, but there's a lot of us in Michigan that try to add to that. We'll just go shoot goofy stuff, or different divisions, and it's just we just go have fun. I mean, I've shot a 6.5 Creedmoor in TAC Ops.
Whoa, that had to have been an expensive match.
It wasn't bad. I had the idea because an unnamed club in our area likes to put steel at like 30 yards.
Oh, really?
For a rifle. I'm like, well, let's have fun with this, I guess. And I found a bunch of soft point 6.5 Creedmoor for like 40 or 50 cents a round, and I bought a couple hundred rounds of it, and it was totally worth the extra cost over 2.3 of like teleporting knockovers into the berm instead of knocking them over.
Oh man, I love that visual, teleporting knockovers.
Coop is pretty known for, he had an AK match this year. Everyone brought their AKs out. So, I mean, we test skill at the locals because we're fortunate to have a bunch of talented shooters in our area, but we also kind of do things a little different sometimes and have a lot of fun and just enjoy the game, which is important.
I like that. Yeah, it's like, like Texas 3-gun this year. We got a big rowdy group together, and there's like last I heard there was 30 shooters that are going to be shooting in heavy division, and this is an idea that Jay Christensen and I came up with when we were at the DC Project match. And it was basically like, well, you only need one different gun, so really you need like a mag pouch and a different gun, and a bunch of expensive 308 ammo instead of 5.56. And you can shoot this. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we got a big group of people together that normally shoot other divisions to shoot that? And so that's what we're doing. And that's the cool thing about, club matches. There's nothing on the line, so you can tell your buddies, hey, bring out your weirdest gun, or bring out your AK, and let's shoot AKs today, and have a good time there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're not going to see Coop and Rick Birdsall shooting a Shockwave and a AK at a major. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just hilarious to watch stuff like that and see the videos of it, and just, I mean, we're all competitive. I mean, there are obviously some people in it that are just do it for fun. They don't care at all, and that's awesome. But the vast majority of us do this because we're competitive, and so you need to kind of refresh every now and then and do something goofy. And when you're spending thousands of dollars to travel, of course you're not going to do it. So
yeah, that's for sure.
We enjoy the different stuff at the locals, and
I also find that like doing goofy stuff helps me reset. Like you said, you're not going to do it when you're spending thousands of dollars to travel, and like that thing can kind of wear down on you to where like maybe you're taking it a little too serious and need like a little bit of a break, And I think shooting goofy stuff, or for me, like I like to shoot limited, in club matches for a couple months every year, and it reminds me like, oh, I don't need that scope near as much as I think I do, and then it's something different to do. So it's now like, getting out of that well-worn groove that you've created in your brain and doing new stuff, which I enjoy a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can easily get burnout if you're trying to take this seriously and compete, especially. And I mean, even when I'm screwing around at a local match, I'll pick one thing to try to do well. And that is essentially practice or a test or something, whatever, quad loads, offhand rifle, like whatever. I want to just have fun. I want to mess around all day, except that one skill that I may be having trouble with or want to just refine. Then that better be how it, that better be high quality, and that better be how it is. But everything else, you can kind of reset and relax and get back to the roots of just having a good time.
That's a good way of thinking about it. Only putting the emphasis where it needs to be rather than stressing out over everything all the time. I like that.
I mean, no one's ever shot a perfect match, right? Like, it's just not possible. Even, I mean, guys like Daniel Horner and Greg Jordan, they can compete at the highest level and kill it in a match, but they're not going to tell you it was perfect. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've heard, Josh Fralick say that. I mean, that's kind of, I think, part of the reason why he kind of transitioned to some of the single gun stuff this year was because 3-gun, there's too many variables.
Yeah.
You'll be perfect. So you can always work on something. But so to go out and try to, even at a local, I'm going to crush this whole match, it's going to be perfect. No, it's not. So I've found myself doing that, just focusing on one thing.
Yeah. And as like a mid-pack shooter myself, or a mid-pack hack, as they like to say around here in Austin, I've often thought that myself, of like, well, that guy has, he shoots really good, so he must go home and not beat himself up. But as I've done the show more and more, and people become more and more comfortable talking to me, it's amazing how much the guy in first place will bitch about his performance at the match right before the prize table. It's like, bro, you're not going to find sympathy here because you just beat everyone else here. But like, I guess if I, really try to put my psychologist hat on, like, I can find empathy for them. Like, I understand, like, there is something everyone can do better all the time, for sure.
Related to that, I don't know. I don't think maybe this is isolated to me, but I don't think it is. So, for example, at Surefire World Multigun in Vegas this year, Pete invited me to, I was shooting limited. He invited me to be on the TAC Ops, quote, super squad. And so I went into that match kind of wondering, some people say, oh, you division shopping or hiding in this division or whatever, and that can apply to anything really besides TAC, right? And so I kind of went in there subconsciously wondering if I belonged to shoot with those guys. And so the first day was not pretty, because I was essentially trying to shoot at 100% to see if I could keep up.
Were you like trying to prove that you belong there, kind of thing?
Or just see, like, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to say, like, I do, but I just didn't know, and I wanted to see. And I shot a lot more penalties than I typically do on the first day, and all my runs felt fast. So the second day, I regroup and just do my thing. And something to note is the first day I didn't get anywhere close to their scores. So the second day I just shoot smooth and shoot my game, and I'm keeping up or beating them on certain stages, but it all felt very slow. So bringing that back to what you were talking about, I don't know if that's isolated to me, but I don't think it is. So the people at the top are very focused, trying to be smooth and just do what you have to do, and it doesn't feel fast.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel perfect. So you're talking about people beating themselves up at the end of a match, even when they win. And maybe that contributes to it. I know it's pretty common ever since I started this till in Wyoming when I shot with him. People will say, you watch Daniel Horner and he just doesn't look fast until they say the time, because he's so smooth and he just always shoots on the move and all these other things. And so I think that's kind of related. Even when you do well, especially if you're doing your job, it feels not great, not perfect, and not fast.
When things like hook up, like all the gears are meshing together and everything is happening the way it should. This has only happened to me like a couple times, like less than a handful, less than I can count on one hand. But it's, something people talk about in riding. They talk about it in other sports as well. A flow state, right? Have you ever heard of the concept?
I don't think so. Maybe, but
it's just like everything is clicking for you, and it almost feels like you're third person watching you perform, you know? And I don't mean like you see the back of your head and your name on your jersey and stuff like that, but it feels like something, I guess kind of like maybe like a dream state sort of.
It just kind of happened.
I don't know exactly how to describe it, but Brian Enos describes it really well in his book, so go read that. I'm failing on words here. But the overall thing is like your subconscious mind is doing all the things that you know you need to do. So your conscious mind, your observer mind, is just sitting there watching you do them and going like, "Damn, Dave, you stuffed that quad really well." And like, "Oh, great, the shotgun's exactly back on your shoulder where it needs to be, and you've got both eyes open, and you just laid down those targets, and that's amazing. Okay, cool. You dumped your shotgun, that's great, and you've already got your pistol out, and like you're picking up that fiber, and it's just like you're observing yourself perform all these things. That's what it feels like, like you're just along for the ride, and like your meat sack, your body is performing all the stuff on its own, like I said, with your subconscious mind. And that flow state, again, I've only ever reached it in a couple areas or a couple times in 3-gun, but I've done it in other areas as well. Like once you see that, and once that is like something that is out there, it's like, okay, now how do we get back there all the time, and you hear athletes all over talk about it, runners, especially basketball players, football players, and it's like, how can we get there again and again and get that perfect performance? But even then, when you go back and look at it on the clock or on video, you can pick apart that performance and say like, okay, well, there was time to be made here. It wasn't technically a perfect performance, but it was executing everything to the best of our ability that we could at that time.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I mean like your conscious and subconscious mind. So yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to get to those places, and when you do, you have to like savor them,
Yeah, and I think I know what you're talking about. And like when I say the runs, they feel slow, but then it turned out to be good. I think that's part of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I skipped over that part in my explanation. Oh, I'm sorry, I stepped on you there, but I skipped over that part in my explanation. Is like when it's happening, it feels like it's almost happening in slow motion. Like that's the level of observation that you have. It feels like you're operating in slow motion, and
you've done your job.
Yep.
Preparing, and it's just happening.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly. So, yeah, it's all that work up front. It's interesting. All right, so backing up once more, you mentioned that you went out and bought a scope. So, when did you decide you wanted to shoot limited?
That was kind of during the off season after 2018. I don't know. It just kind of looked like fun, and not to say like division shopping, but I think I was actually looking at scores for Surefire for 2018, and I was like, dang, I could have done okay there. And so things are different for everybody, right? Like some people, look at some people don't care about scores. Some people look at a percentage. And so I'm a little bit goal driven, and it's a little bit hard to kind of stay motivated and put the time in a little bit. Like when you're just looking at a percentage and there's like not so much of a tangible, I guess, reward.
So
personally,
do you look at like competitors that you want to chase down or something like that?
Yeah. And I mean, I use that to drive me a bit, but at first it was like, well, I want to see if I can just win like something, and then I'm like, the first time I shot long range with limited, it was it's just too much fun, really, to ring steel at long range with no magnification it just never gets old.
Yeah, it's like a Jack in the Box. It's like always a surprise.
And it looked fun, but I'm like, dang, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I don't understand how these guys do it. And then, so when I was actually down in Texas hunting, we hunt like 1,000 acres, and I just set up a piece of steel and started shooting it at 200, 300, 400 yards. And much to my surprise, I was hitting it, and I'm like, dang, I can do this. So this looks like a lot of fun. Let's play here. I don't know, it just kind of stuck. I just always enjoyed it after that. And then with things like competitor, it's, if you look at a lot of the rule sets these days, limited and TAC are very similar, other than your optic, right? So you have all this technology that allows you to kind of sort of play in two divisions. You can shoot what you want and compete with those guys, and you can click a button and see how you compare to everybody else. So
yeah, it's
kind of both worlds.
It's fun doing that, especially for limited shooters, and I find limited shooters do that a lot, right? Like they do a lot of comparisons to TAC, you know, especially like you said, because everything else is the same, you know, and there's probably two exceptions out there. I think Texas 3-gun and Nordic Vortex Tri-gun.
Yep.
Last year limited the shotgun to 8 rounds, which I totally agree with. I think is a great thing. But when everything else is almost the same, and you know, you're out there ringing stuff at long distance, and the dudes with the extra magnification can't hit it, probably feels pretty good.
It does. It's a different skill a little bit, and it depends on how you do. So I dial my turrets and then hold. I do a combination of both. So
okay, well, explain. Let's get into the technical part of that. Explain how you do that. Like, what do you dial for, and then what do you hold for?
So, for example, if you like, the majority of the time, I'll try to dial less than at least once, maybe maximum. So I'll try to minimize it, because it takes time, right? You got to look at the little numbers on your dial, and you got to take time to do it. And match directors like to make you shoot these targets from more than one position too. I found is a trend, not always, but commonly enough. So if you have to dial a bunch of times from a position, then you're going to do it again. It's not like you shoot these from 200 from this position. You get to dial while you're running, and you have to shoot farther. You're shooting the same targets, so you try to minimize it, because it takes time. It probably takes me 2 or 3 seconds to get it dialed accurately and get back on target.
Well, and not only that, but you're not always just dialing one direction too, because the most advantageous way to shoot it isn't always the closest to the farthest, right?
Right. Yeah. And so some guys still will just hold over in limited, and it seems to work fine, but my brain just doesn't work like that. I need a more precise aiming point, especially coming from TAC. Like, it's not like, I mean, you all have these BDC reticles. It's not, you don't just hold 18 inches under the center crosshair. Like, you have a precise aiming point. So that's just the way my brain worked and learned it. So that's kind of what I do. So for example, if you have a raise at 200, 300, and 400 yards, I'm probably going to start the stage dialed to 300, and I'm going to hold low at 200 yards. I'm going to hold dead on at 300 yard targets, and then I'm going to hold high at 400, so I don't have to take the time to do it. But some matches, for example, Gen 3 was one, you would have targets from 100 to 5. And for me, I can't do that just with one scope setting. So I would shoot an array until it got too different, or the holdovers were harder for me, and then I would dial and complete the stage.
Got it.
So
So
there's a lot of ways to do it, but that's just kind of how my brain works, and what I've
so
done.
you'll hold until it gets complicated, and then you'll dial, right?
More or less, yeah. Like depending on for example, at Gen 3, 2 of the long range stages were from a single position, your rifle, and it wasn't always near to far, like left to right, but just for simplicity's sake and for limited for me, especially dialing, I just shoot near to far. So for example, there, I think I started dial at like 300. I'd shoot everything out to like 4. And then when they started to get 400 to 450, closer to 5, that holdover didn't really work anymore for me. So I would dial there for the longer yardages for the last couple targets.
Got it. So when you say you dial, are you using a Spitfire?
I am not. I am using a Leupold VX Freedom red dot.
Oh, okay. So is that like a traditional red dot where it's an LED that projects on the screen?
It is, yeah, but it's 1 MOA. And
Oh,
so I'm just a hair OCD at least. So trusting my matches to a battery was super weird for me. But the Leupold is the way my eyes work, and shooting both eyes open it's the best choice for me. And so it has a 1 MOA dot. So when I turn it down, if I want to shoot a target at 300 or 400 yards, even out to mid 4s, I can turn the brightness down and I can see my dot inside the target. Like I know where it's not covering it up completely. I'm not really guessing. And again, I guess that comes back to the OCD a little bit.
yeah.
I want it to be precise. Like I want to know what I'm doing, not as little guesswork as possible. And that has worked. That scope's worked very well for me. I really enjoyed it.
And is it only a dot in there? There's nothing else in there? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. And so when you say you dialed the turrets, like are the turrets made to be dialed, or are you like taking the caps off and leaving them exposed, or what?
You can choose. There's 2 versions of it.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like the Spitfire comes with a regular turret or the BDC.
Yeah.
So mine has the top elevation turret exposed with a 0 stop, and that's meant to be dialed. And it just so happens that I found an ammo that at most elevations lines up perfectly with the yardages on there, which is
it's always nice.
I don't calibrated for, but the 68 grain Frontier from Hornady matches up out of an 18 really well with that scope. Now, when we shot in Wyoming at 5,000 feet, that's not the case.
Right.
But the vast majority of the majors, it lined up almost perfectly, which is convenient.
Yeah. Huh. That's pretty slick. I didn't even know that type of optic existed, where it was just a dot that actually had BDC turrets as well.
It's fairly new. I think they had just come out when I bought one. So I shot Expedition multigun in March, was my first major unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shooting a Spitfire at that time. And I don't know how I even found out about this Leupold. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah.
But it was new this year, and as soon as I looked through it, I'm like, yeah, this is it's very forgiving. Like, I mean, obviously most red dots are, right? Like, so your eye relief and all that is just it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about shooting red dots is like you can throw them in any sort of goofy situation that you can think of, and as long as that little dot's on the target, you're good to go. Doesn't matter if it's centered up or if you've got a good cheek weld or anything.
Yeah, and it's super fast on the close stuff, and very forgiving in weird positions for long range too.
Yep.
Which I don't know. I kind of think outside the box. You'll find me doing a lot of different things at matches, as far as some stage plans that people look at me weird for, or some shooting positions that for long range that are not what everyone else picks. So that versatility is nice.
Do you have an example of like a position that you've chosen that not everyone else picked?
The biggest one I can think of is at Gen 3 this year, one of the long range stages, there was a tank trap that you had to be within 1 yard of, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much everyone was going prone underneath it.
I think you had to be touching it, and that's why people were going prone under it, right, because then at least some sort of part of their body could be touching it.
Yes, you are correct. That's better memory than me. But so everyone went prone because I guess traditionally, I mean, everyone just says if you can go prone, do it. It's the best position. Well, for me personally, I don't shoot prone that good. I don't know why. I think some of it is maybe less. I'm a big dude, and it's sometimes hard for me to get, like when I shoot a 1-6 in TAC, it's hard for me to get that good eye relief and everything and make the sight picture look really good, and how it should be so you can hit stuff. And so I don't know. I just don't shoot prone that much. And it's something that I've practiced a little bit, need to practice more. But for example, on that stage, probably 90% of the people went prone. Well, I just sat down and pinched my rifle against the tank trap and just sat on my butt. And I think I had, 2 makeups in 10 targets or something. And that stage probably contributed to a vast majority of my success at that match, because it was worth a lot of points. So that's one example of I just do something a little different.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely different because, and that's a really good example because that adage is an adage for a reason, but if you're not physiologically sound in that position, it can actually be a detriment to you,
And I don't know if it's any more stable than, I'm sure it probably wasn't as stable as prone, but I had the confidence in doing it is the biggest thing. Right? Yeah. So it just was executed well because I had the confidence. Whereas if there's a position you don't necessarily like, you're not going to be as strong mentally. You're not going to be as focused. And
yeah, because now you're thinking about, getting in that position or getting out of that position, or like, oh gosh, I hate this or something like that. Yeah, easily.
And, I mean, that's stuff you have to work on, but you don't do it at a match.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's stuff you write down in your little notebook. That should be in your range bag, and then next range day when you're trying to figure out like, oh, what am I going to practice today? That should be at the top of your list.
Yeah, and I guess let me clarify a little bit on that. Like for example, at Wyoming, I'm sure you remember stage 11, the big long range stage. They had that kind of like there was a lay down deck with a railing that you could pinch against. Mm-hmm. See, I have no problem with that. I'm fully confident in that. But when you're just on the ground, and I think this applied to Gen 3, to see all the targets, you could not pinch your handguard against that tank trap.
Yes.
It was monopoding off the mag.
Yes.
That's the one I struggle with. So if I have something to get another point of contact, then I love the position. But the monopoding off the mag is something that I personally struggle with.
Okay.
And so I avoid that at almost all costs.
Have you ever tried using coupled mags as like a kind of a bipod sort of thing?
I have, and
still not for you.
Until you have uneven ground.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sit them flat. So, like in Wyoming, that thing was pretty level. You're going to be rock solid if you do that. If I remember at Gen 3, I don't know. I guess I didn't shoot it. I think we position, so I can't speak to it exactly. But
I want to say that we were almost downhill the rifle.
It was definitely, and I'm not that was another thing that contributed to that. I laid in that position and I got a little stuff in the way from getting my body. So my gun was way lower than my body than I wanted it to be. So that was another reason I didn't do that.
Yeah, there's a couple dudes in my squad that were doing 35s, like a 30 round PMAG with a base pad. And there's guys that had like, okay, well, I'm going to use my coupled 40s. And then there was dudes that were like, okay, I'm going to use my coupled 40s plus a base pad, and so it's all based on like your body and your, how much you can bend your neck and, what lying prone really is to you, plus the angle and all that shit. So there's a lot that goes into that. And that's, why everyone carries so many dang mags with them and everything. But yeah, if you don't know all that and like your practice range is flat, like it's hard to practice that,
Yeah, it is. And comes back to what you have confidence in that you can execute, and what you have the ability to practice. Like you said, whatever you have access to put yourself in those different positions and what you can do and what you think you might be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all comes with experience. There's tons of different ways to skin a cat there.
Yeah.
So Mike,
and that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One thing that I've learned so you kind of gather things from different people, right?
Yeah.
There's no one person that has all the answers. And one thing I've learned is asking why do you do that? And I basically, a lot of people probably have discussed this, but I give most of the credit to Coop. That's one big thing that he taught a couple classes up here. It's like, why are you going to do it that way? Well, it's fastest. Is it? If the answer is yes, then go ahead. But if it's not, then maybe don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've put quite a bit of time in, especially this year, on doing simple drills and paying attention to your splits and things like that. So when I'm making a decision, I try to make it informed and I know why I'm doing it. So if you can hose those shotguns or those targets with a shotgun and you have fast splits, but now you have to go to your pistol. Well, how long does that take? Mm-hmm. Is it faster? Not. And I try to know those answers. Just like a rifle position. Does it work for you or does it not? And to execute to the best of your ability is to know those answers. Some people may just come up with that, just kind of, I guess, as a gut, but back to kind of the way my mind works, I want to know the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the best example I've seen of that is shooting with USPSA guys, where they'll count the targets, they'll know their transition, they'll know their splits, and then they'll count the paces that they have to move between arrays, and then they'll come up with like a stage time. You're like, holy shit! Like I can't do that math in my head, but I'm impressed that you did that. But as far as like just saving time, one of my favorite people to walk stages with is Lance Dingler, because he does stuff like that. He's like, well, you really think that transition's worth it? It's X amount of seconds, and he'll name it just off the top of his head, and then I got to add like 20% for me, but
it still applies though, right?
It still applies. It absolutely does.
As long as you know the numbers for yourself.
Yeah, and for so I always, I guess I kind of thought that was magic just because like I refuse to do math in public, but what I've come to figure out is like training with Darren Cepeda the way as often as I do is we put everything on the clock. Is like, okay, well, is this the fastest or is that the fastest? And then we'll try to challenge each other and maybe come up with like a dumb way of doing something just to see like, is there a faster way of doing this? We'll put it on the clock, and now we know like, okay, well, this is faster. And then like you said, the transition. It's like, well, let's put the transition on the clock. Let's see what it actually is, and then it, is you do that enough times, and you accidentally get that ingrained in your head. It's like we were talking about that well-worn groove. It's like now you just know you have that feeling, and so what is, even if you can't quote the exact number the way Lance can, that this is going to be faster if I do it this way.
Right. And the traditional way, or the most popular way, is not necessarily the fastest. Like you said, just find a dumb way to do it. You don't know until you try it. And that can apply to anything. Your transitions, the way you move from positions. Sometimes, a lot of times, the top people doing it one way is probably for a reason, but there's not to say that you or anyone else can figure out the best way or the faster way to do it. But you have to think for yourself and not just go with, I guess, groupthink or the most popular way or how somebody else tells you to do it.
Yeah. And another great person at that is James Gill, and there's people that when you ask them, like you said, they'll say, because it's faster, and whether it's just a dismissive comment or they really cannot articulate like why that is faster. Like James never does that. He will give you an explanation, and he'll tell you the year he learned it and where he was when he learned it. And he's like got to be one of the most analytical instructors that I've ever worked with. He breaks down absolutely everything and then can tell you why he does everything. It's pretty interesting, but the groupthink thing is kind of interesting. Now, we were talking beforehand about the dangers of groupthink, and I think you had like an example that you wanted to bring up here.
I mean, it's just a lot of things can go that way, and I kind of forget who brought this up. It might have been Coop. I think Daniel. I took Daniel Horner's class in Wyoming. I believe he brought it up too. You'll see it a lot actually with super squads, quote, or even just people that of any skill level that are kind of in a clique or whatever, a group of friends that shoot together a lot. You can kind of just, they'll come up with a plan that's just the same, and it may not be the fastest, it may not be the best, but especially once you get multiple people together that are like, oh yeah, that's the best, then they stop considering the other options.
Yeah, and it's almost as if they I've seen this, and I saw this at UML Traditional Nationals too, because I had like a squad of really good, really experienced shooters that I was on. Right, I don't know how I got on that squad, but you can almost see it happening, and it's like they're non-verbally deferring to another person's experience of like, oh, of course, Mike knows this. Why would I challenge him on it? Why would I dream to think of a faster way? Because Mike knows what he's doing, and clearly he's thought about this, Yeah,
and I'll use Wyoming as another example. In Daniel's class, we had the opportunity to take a one-day class with him and then shoot the match with him, and continue our instruction, which was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
But he probably got annoyed with me by the end of the weekend because we would be planning stages, and I'd be like, hey, well, how about this? And sometimes he would explain to me why he didn't think that was fastest, and was probably right, usually right. But sometimes he would be like, that, and we'd sit there and talk about it, talk about the numbers, talk about the time, and would change. And obviously not everyone on the squad shot the same stage plan because you have different skill levels. But that was an interesting part of that, to kind of sit back and I kind of challenged myself at that match, because it would be certainly easy to sit back and just copy somebody like Daniel and try to do, even if, I would consider my pistol my weakest gun, and my shotgun my strongest, and the rifle's up there. So even if you considered all your guns even, obviously Daniel's a very proficient pistol shooter. He's good with all the guns, but I mean, you're talking about a grandmaster pistol shooter. So I might not take targets that he would, but it would be easy to just follow him and just. So I challenged myself to try to think differently and ask a lot of questions, and I learned a lot that way, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to do it, and it's interesting that you mentioned Daniel's response to your challenges, because Jerry Mitchellek is a good example everyone likes to bring up, as he is a person that will watch what everyone does and consider what everyone does without judgment, and it's almost like he's trying to figure out, like, well, what does that guy know that I don't? What's that guy seeing that I don't? Maybe they're seeing something else here, but he's very open to other stage plans, and he may not use your stage plan. He may come up with something better on his own, but he's a guy that I've seen ask just like a brand new shooter who's scared shitless of, actually shooting on the clock, ask him a stage plan, and he'll listen to the entire thing, and he's done it to me several times too. And then, some of the stuff that I've said, he's like, offered, like, hey, have you thought of doing this, but he considers it, and you brought up Wyoming. So I shot with Greg Jordan, and Greg was the exact same way when we were doing our walkthroughs. If he was like, okay, we're going to do this, him and Rick Torres were talking about stuff, they would sit there and debate it. And then if I brought up like, well, hey, what do you think about that? They wouldn't just, oh, shut up, kid, just stick with the plan. They'd come over, they'd look at it, they'd discuss it, and then we would, come to a consensus. We'd talk it out and stuff like that. But they considered all angles, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this or heard this, Mike, but a lot of ROs talk about like the also rans, the dudes that are like from 10 to 30 that are the, in the finish, that are the biggest problems in the match. They argue about calls, they try to get penalties removed and things like that. But it's like the arrogant also rans, like those people are the ones that will never listen to a thing you say. They are always right. They get in that groupthink thing, like you were talking about in the shooting clicks, and those are the people that are so bullheaded they're not going to listen to what you say, right? But then we just mentioned 3 people at the top of the game that are open to anyone's input and feedback and considering it.
Yeah,
probably something to that, huh?
Yes, I don't think that's coincidence. I bet you've talked about 3 just there, Dan, Jerry, and Greg, that do that, and I bet you if you look at the rest of the top field, and you can argue about who those people are, but I bet you that's a very, very popular outlook on that. And how you described Greg talking about you guys' plans in your squad was just like Daniel. And I've only had the pleasure of shooting with Jerry one time, and I was pretty new at that time. So if he did things like that, I probably didn't even notice. But it's no surprise to me that that's a common theme, because you're just, I don't know, there's exceptions to every rule, but if you think you know it all and you're the best and your way is the best and that's just the way it is, you're done learning.
Yeah. I feel like there's a truck waiting to hit you just coming around the corner too, because you're not paying attention to what the rest of the people are doing, or what the newest technology or the newest techniques.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before somebody new that has that open mind and and even similar drive as you is going to pass you by.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're with anything, when you're done learning, you're done getting better at it, period. I guess maybe not.
No, I love that.
But
I look at that the same way, as everything. Like, for example, like about 4 months here, I'm going to be 40, and I think about like when my dad turned 40, and, my dad's fortunately, my dad's still alive, and he's, I think 67 now. And like when he was 40, like he was the youngest of 9, right? So they held like a, over the hill party for him, and, everybody dressed in black, and they gave him black jelly beans and all these old guy gifts and everything. And, I think that imprinted on his head, that like I'm an old guy now, so he like started grunting when he'd get out of chairs and, and doing old guy stuff. I'm sure like, having kids in college and then eventually grandkids and stuff like that took its toll as well. I have no idea. But in my observation, I see other dudes out there in their 60s that are like running marathons, that are running 100-mile races, that are running, desert 250s and deadlifting 500 pounds and shit like that. And you can, I mean, those are all physical examples, but you can put that toward learning as well. It's like so my degree's in marketing. When I graduated from college, like Facebook ads weren't a thing. Instagram marketing wasn't a thing. And if I chose not to learn, the industry would pass me by. So it's like everything, if you didn't pivot from only car washes into storage as well, it's like, does that limit the growth of your business? Because now you have this whole other area that you can expand into, and it's like anything in life. I do think you're absolutely right. Like if you stop learning, you might as well just call it a day,
I mean, obviously, like I said, there's exceptions, and it may not be that definitive, but it's pretty dang close. And certainly if you're applying it to things where other people can pass you, such as competitors in business or competitors in 3-gun, the person with an open mind they have so much more to leverage, and their learning curve is just so much faster. It doesn't matter whether you're just starting or you're at the top and you're still trying to go. But if you have a closed mind, which can be difficult sometimes to open it up, but it's just a disadvantage.
Yeah. And no doubt it can be difficult to open it up, especially when you talk about like time in the game, right? So you've been so you told me that your first major match was the 2017 3-Gun Nation Nationals, right? So
Yep.
I've been shooting since 2011. I think my first major was the 2012 Noveski Multigun Championship, right? But if you and I are on the practice range together and I don't listen to you, obviously I'm an idiot, because you've demonstrated that you have like the knowledge, skills, and ability to whoop my butt, and if I didn't think like, oh, maybe there's something I can learn from Mike here, then I would be at a serious disadvantage. So yeah, like, going back to what we were saying about the three gentlemen we respect that we just mentioned, it's like, there's not a coincidence that they're listening to other people on the range.
No, and it would be very easy for somebody like that to say, why would I listen to you? Like, I look at my success. Like, I know what I'm doing, and they do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're not content either. They always want to improve, and compete. And so, but it would be easy for them to say, I don't know, like, why should I listen to you? But they just don't. And I think anyone should try to consider that. And there's a lot of value, I believe, in obviously listening to the people that are at the top in the sport, but there's a lot of value in listening to the people that aren't.
Sure.
Because maybe they don't, I guess don't care as much, but maybe they're not trying to compete as high of level. They're just doing it because, and they're thinking about everything in a different manner, or they haven't been at it as long. So you have fresh ideas that are not ingrained from bad habits or whatever. And it's just fresh, new thinking. And you can, if you're trying to improve and shoot at a higher level or whatever that may be, whether it's at the top or just higher in the middle or wherever, it'd be wise to try to learn from literally everybody, because you never know what you might come up with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And otherwise you get, stagnant, and like we were talking about the group think. It's a really good point. And along the lines of the group think, I can't tell you how many times I've heard a sentence started with, "Well, my whole squad shot it like this." And it's funny that you bring that up, because it's plain as day. Like, squads do get massively into groupthink, and then you'll find some dude that's like, 5 spots down that may be a new guy, and he's like, "Well, I was going to shoot it like this, but y'all are shooting it like that." It's like, well, maybe yours is better, bro. Try it like that and see how it works.
Yeah, I actually take a little joy in when people say stuff like that. Well, my whole squad did it like this. That's why are you doing it like that? Well, we can talk about it, and maybe you're right or maybe not.
Yeah.
But if you just want to assume you're right, then go sit back there and let's see what happens. And sometimes you look dumb, but when you confront kind of that attitude and you don't, then you get a little bit of a chuckle out of it. But I mean, again, going back to like the local match thing we were talking about, I really will shoot stuff goofy at a local match. And we will commonly laugh how dumb I look, or somebody else that does the same thing, because it doesn't go well. But there's no pressure there to try those things and learn.
Yeah. Yeah, the old joke, like, go fast, take chances, like when your grandma tells you, like, oh, drive careful, call us when you get home, and then your uncle is like, go fast, take chances. That's what I look at club matches as now. Like when I was new and I would go to club matches, like it felt like the Super Bowl, and I was nervous to be there, and there's all these experienced shooters and everything. And now I look at it as like, okay, well, I'm going to try to shoot this a different way than I normally would, or I'm going to try to shoot it faster than I normally would. I'm going to see where the wheels fall off. I'm going to see where those mistakes happen and stuff like that, and I'm going to experiment. And I look at it as more of like the lab now,
Absolutely. And most of the guys that are giving classes, I haven't taken all of them, I've only taken a couple, but most of the people will tell you, they can all agree that you're not performing in a major match at 100%. You're not even trying to do that. You're dialing it back to where you can execute reliably.
Yeah.
But if you're not pushing it at a club match, then you don't know where that is. And I don't know whether you do it in a club match or do it in a drill on a timer. Is kind of personal preference, I guess. But
yeah,
and it's a great time to test that.
For me,
you
like,
have buddies there to rib you when it goes wrong.
For me, like, doing it in a in a drill, that I look at that as like an also. Like, I also will do it in drills, and generally with drills, like, I'm trying to refine like a specific skill, but then in a club match, that's when like the whole stage is together, because I rarely set up like I don't think I've ever set up an entire stage for a practice session. So, like,
I don't think that there are many people out there that would give that advice. I I always thought, oh man, how fun would it be to recreate a stage from a match, like at the beginning when I started this, and just do that. But that's all the bullets and all the time, and typically not the most effective practice method to refine a skill because there's too many variables. So yeah, I think you're right on track with everything that people have told me and things that I've tested is, yeah, you're going to drill out specific skills and then try to put it all together at a local or a club match and see where the threshold is of what you can do.
Right. Well, okay. So we're in at the end of 2019 here. You've had a bunch of limited wins. Safari Expedition multi-gun, limited division win. Wyoming Governor's Match, limited division win. Generation 3-gun, a limited division win. Mission 22, I think they call that multi-gun championship, limited division win.
So, yep.
Surefire World Multi-Gun Championship, limited division win. And then you added 2 TAC Ops wins in the Jeff Kirkwold Memorial 3-gun, which, of course, is an entire day of shoot-offs, which is a lot of fun. And then Michigan State Championship as well, another win in TAC Ops. So had a pretty good season. Let's talk about your practice. Like what do you do in practice to make sure that you're ready for these major matches? And then at the end here, let's talk about your 2020 season, some goals and things like that. So started off with practice. How did you get yourself tuned up, and how do you keep in top shooting form?
So this has been kind of a long road, and I'm still not at the end of it. Especially this year, trying to really compete and see what I could do. Because when you put the work in at some point, I don't know if it happens the same for everybody, but for me, I was practicing, I was trying to do better ever since I started this. But at a certain point, like Expedition was my first major match win. I'm like, oh dang, I can actually do this. So, and for those of us that are competitive, whatever your success may be, whether it's beating a certain competitor at a club match or being X percentage of somebody or a match win in whatever division, when you accomplish your goal, it's a great feeling, right? So you want to keep doing it. So this year was a little bit up and down for me. Is I would really train really hard and almost get burnt out, and then so it was really difficult to try to find the balance of what was sustainable over a long period of time. So my basic, I guess we're looking at dry fire, like when I'm trying to stay tuned up for the season, I'll try to dry fire probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Are those targets behind you?
Yeah, there's that's just a little turtle shell type target, and then I have 6 pasters on the wall.
Those are your rifle targets?
Those are what I use for the Hopkins drill.
Oh, okay.
Which I believe is in a bunch of the dry fire books, and Matt Kupica has a YouTube video on it.
Yeah, Coop actually described that the first time he was on the podcast here, and then followed up with that video so people could see what he was talking about.
I found that information when I was first starting, and I've used it from day one. So when I first started in 3-gun, I would do all the silly dry fire. I guess I say silly, but it's not for everybody. But I don't use a lot of it anymore. I mean, it'd be 30, 40 minutes picking guns up off tables and doing rifle reloads, just stuff that a lot of the stuff that you don't use that much. Let's be honest, most of us with rule sets, 99% of the rule sets now, you can run a D60, so you don't need to practice rifle mag changes every day. So I've refined the process, but I still use the Hopkins. So right now, what I'll do is I'll do a Hopkins drill, and it's traditionally done with pistol, but I'll do it with whatever gun. I do it a lot with rifle. Personally, not so much with shotgun. If shotgun's weak for you, I think you could benefit from it. But shotgun's very natural for me with my history of bird hunting and sporting clays. So picking up a target transition with a shotgun is not something I practice. But I'll do it with rifle and pistol pretty much every time. And what I try to do is get like typically 5 good reps, good sight pictures. Most of the time I won't use a timer except to start. And Coop goes over that with the Hopkins in his video, is it's not like it's a sight picture thing. It's not a time thing. And I've gotten to the point too, like when I'll do a quad loading or pistol draw or pistol reload, I really only use the start on my timer. Cause I mean, you know, when you do it right, you know, when you don't. If I'm evaluating a new technique, then I will likely do it in live fire on a timer and get those hard numbers like we were talking about earlier. And then just hammer it home without that end beep, trying to beat it, just make sure that everything is good. So I'll do the Hopkins with pistol rifle, try to get 5 good reps. If it's been a tired day after work and it's not looking good, sometimes that takes me a while. Other times it'll be 5 and you move on to the next thing, and that varies by day.
You dry fire every day?
No. I'll try to do, if I'm really, really focused on my training, I'll do 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay.
And then try to live fire, either replace one day or ideally add a day of live fire on simple low round count drills to verify what you're doing in dry fire is helping, or at least keeping you where you need to be. And I keep a log of that stuff, of those times, to see if I'm getting better or what. Kind of allows you to evaluate if a skill is slipping. Not to steal Daniel Horner's ideas, but one thing that he mentioned is like all these skills are like batting balloons in the air, and they fall, right? And you have to keep them at a certain level, and you can't keep them all up at once. So you have to focus on the one that where they each need to be and get it to an acceptable level, and kind of play that game essentially.
It's so true, man. It's so true. Like there's
like he knows what he's talking about, you know.
But. Yeah, like you said you identify, you say you're a shotgunner, right? Like you lean on shotgun if you need to. Like there's over the last 8 years of shooting 3-gun for me, there's been times where I'll proudly state that I'm a rifleman, or the shotgun's my favorite, or that my pistol game is really strong right now. And there's also times where I'll say, like, I don't even know why I shoot the rifle anymore. Like, I should just go shoot USPSA, because I suck so bad at it right now. And same thing with the shotgun and the pistol. But the analogy that Daniel used of batting the balloons in the air, it's so true, man, because when you're working hard on that pistol, something else is suffering.
And this is somebody that does this for a living and can do it all the time. And
yeah.
A lot of us, the vast majority of us, are not in that boat, right? So that's even more of a juggling game. It's just like I said, even for him doing it full time, it's not possible to keep them all at the top. You have to pick and choose. And when you narrow the time down, so I guess back to a simple answer to your question is I try to keep my practice very, very simple. I'll do the Hopkins with rifle and pistol, and I'll do a few pistol draws, not for speed, but to make sure that I'm getting the proper grip, because like I said earlier, my pistol I would consider is my weakest gun. So the recoil management and the proper grip with that, I'll do draws to solidify that, make sure it needs to be And then I'll do some quad loads and some pistol reloads. Some days it might be 5 minutes, and some days it might be 20 minutes total. But for me, I try to keep it very simple. And we all have life too, right? So I will definitely slack off on practice throughout the season. Part of that ups and down, like I said, of going too hard and then having to take a break. And I'll find when I take a break, if I come back and just do the simple drills, it all comes right back pretty quickly. And then you can pick and choose those individual skills that need to be brought up to the next level.
Got it. So when you go to the range, so you were saying that you like to do 3 or 4 dry fire days, and sometimes you'll replace one of those with a range day, or ideally add it on. Are you working on an individual gun, or do you bring all 3 and go ham, or what's your strategy?
That depends. There's a fatigue level that you don't want to cross, because then you're not progressing. Typically it'll be 1 or 2. And fortunately for me, I can shoot my backyard, so it's super convenient.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
Yeah, well, I certainly won't complain about it. My ammo bill can get pretty high at times.
I bet.
Before Jeff Kirkwald, I live fired every day for over a week. And you have to tailor your training to what matches you're going to go to if you're trying to be successful as well. Everyone will tell you that. You look at the YouTube videos, you get the flavor of the match. And
so was that all shoot off practice?
It was. In that particular case, it was exactly shoot off practice. It was, I think I just did like 6 targets apiece, but I knew they always use 45-degree dump boxes. So I have a 45-degree dump box, 4x10s and 6x6s and a rifle plate rack. And I might not shoot I don't have I have a backstop, but not like a legit 3-sided bay.
Right.
So I couldn't shoot my rifle plate rack at 50 yards and then just shoot pistol targets into nothing. Because it's not safe in this instance. So I would do I do the transitions in that case. So I would kind of do rifle kind of by itself with a transition, and then shotgun pistol I'd move up to my backstop, 10 yards from my backstop, and do that. But in that case in particular, it was very tailored towards that match and the live fire, because I shot that match before, which is an amazing match. But for people that have not done shoot-offs, there's pressure there.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's a friendly bet between your buddies. It doesn't matter. We had a shoot-off for my birthday party this year at that Coop and Chip and a bunch of guys from the LGC Brighton Club in Michigan were kind enough to put together and make happen with all my other 3-gun buddies and some family. But it doesn't matter whether it's just for fun like that or at a major match. There's pressure in a shoot-off. And so my goal there was to just very, very specifically see those targets and know exactly what was going to happen. And Adam always throws us kind of a curveball sometimes, right, on what guns and the target presentations at that match. So yeah. I would switch it up. I didn't always shoot pistol, shotgun, and then rifle. I would always change it up, the order. But those target presentations, I knew exactly more or less what they were going to be.
And you were able to win TAC Ops division, and then there's 2 divisions in the match. I think there's open 2x4, right? And then there's TAC Ops.
Yep.
Which a lot of limited guys will play in that one as well. I shot it. I think I've shot it a couple of years with limited with the UH1, but all depends on your vision.
Yeah, it's a perfect match to do that in, because you try to keep it pretty short because we had to shoot 5 stages. What is there, 100 people? We had to shoot 5 stages in one day.
Yeah, 120, and then 5 stages in one day, and that's and there's nothing on the long range stage, and then the longest shot in the whole match I think is the plate rack on the shoot off, which is like 70, 65, something like that.
Which is no joke.
Yeah. So did you also win in the 2x4 versus tack shoot off that we typically do?
No, that was one of those times that was kind of just for exhibition, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, that John Whitell kid, he's kind of fast. And so I'm going to go full Ricky Bobby and try to see if I can keep up. And surprise, surprise, that didn't work out so good.
Wheels came off.
But it was sure fun.
Yeah, it is just totally an exhibition thing. There's nothing on the line for that one, but we like to do it just for fun, and I think it makes I think it makes for like interesting radio. And then by that time, there's only 2 competitors left, so everyone else is standing around like watching what's going to happen. I think that's like a really cool thing. But shoot, freaking John Whitell with his teenager eyes on a dot, and then you're shooting your tack gear. That's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, in that scenario, I think that this is obviously debatable, but probably the biggest difference is really just the pistol.
Yep.
Having that dot and the comp to keep it flat versus your tack ops gear. And John is like absolutely unbelievable with a pistol.
Yeah, he's killing
it. It's just fun to watch, actually. So yeah, I'm like, well, I shoot shotgun good. I'm gonna go real fast with a shotgun. Miss all the times. I'm pretty sure I had to reload.
Yeah, that it gets a little rough. Well, one of the things that we started off talking about was visualization and mental games. So when you're going into something like a shoot off, what kind of visualization and like, I guess, mental practice are you doing in that case? We talked a lot about your physical practice, but what kind of stuff are you doing upstairs?
So it depends how complicated something is, right? So like for a shoot off, you just have, I mean, everything's right in front of you. There's really no thinking. So you really, really have to focus on the little things. How to pick each gun up out of the box, the sight picture, stuff that you may not think of for a 100-round Iron Man type stage.
Yeah.
When you're just going to remember everything to do and programming the rest in. So in that case, it was kind of laser focus on small details. And that's kind of I pretty much take the same approach to all stages. And somebody actually just posted a question on this on 3-Gun Talk a couple days ago. And I kind of shared my process that I've gathered from the sporting clays, from learning from people in 3-Gun, and kind of refined it and put it together, and it works well for me. I believe it was Jerry Michalek, and it might have been I think it's on one of your episodes where, and don't quote me on that, I don't know, but to the best of my memory. My wife will tell you I'm getting old and I don't remember too well, but anyway. So I'll kind of, any stage, and I mean, you can apply it to a shoot-off stage. It's just a little bit different. I'll just kind of wander around through the shooting area the first time and figure out where you can shoot things from and kind of what everything looks like. And when you think you have maybe an 80% idea, leave the shooting area and count the targets and make sure you found them all. And when stages get more complicated, it's going to be frequent that you don't find them all. So you have to figure out where you can shoot it from. And then I'll go through and make sure that just count number of targets, not rounds. Make sure that that matches up, because outside the shooting area, obviously you can see everything. You find them from the inside, you match that number up. Now you know where everything is, and probably what gun you're going to shoot it with. And that's kind of when you figure that out too, what gun you're going to shoot them with. You can analyze those time differences like we were talking about, and figure all that out. So once you know what you're going to shoot with what gun, where they are, and you know you have them all, now you can think about your reloads. And then when you have that, then I'll stop counting. I'll just know where everything is. And that sometimes is an exception with the shotgun when you're quad loading. You want to verify you're not forgetting anything. And then you'll solidify that a couple times until you really, like you said, it's kind of, you can get it to be second nature, to where maybe, like we were talking about earlier again, you just kind of go into autopilot and just execute everything. And it just doesn't, when it goes really well, you just feel like it kind of just happened and you didn't have to think about it. And that's where kind of the area where the visualization will come in. And it was kind of a weird phenomenon when we shot sporting clays. Obviously, there's some factors there, how the distance, the target presentation, the angle, you choose your choke, and then you figure out your leads. And our coach would hammer it in our head that you sit back and you visualize everything, literally everything, down to that, how that clay was going to break. Your lead, your mounting of the gun, the recoil, like how the clay was going to break. Like, really? Like, you want me to pretend the clay broke? But that level of detail just worked. You would sit back and do that 4 or 5 times, and you would be way more successful than just analyzing the leads and knowing where they come from. And that's what I apply in the final stages of when I shoot a stage. Is literally most of the time I'll just stand back and close my eyes and imagine the entire stage through that few step process on how I come up with that plan, and then just sit back and literally just run through everything in my head. And like we were talking about, depending on, like at a shoot off, you might imagine your sights, or in a very long stage, you might just know the target. But as much detail as you can remember reliably, you literally just visualize it. And of course, at that point, you want it to be, you want to do the steps correctly, because that's pretty much what's going to happen. If you've gotten a target at that point, it's gone. You're not going to shoot it.
Right.
But that, I think, helps you reach that point or that state where you can go up and just relax and execute that stage, instead of, like you said earlier, it's subconscious. You don't want to consciously be thinking about every single thing you have to do, because that's when it goes wrong, and that's what comes with experience. But I found that process helps try to execute in that manner.
Do you use that type of visualization anywhere else in your life, in things you do, like trying to visualize details and outcomes of things that you want to happen?
Probably, maybe not as purposefully, but I would suspect if I really sat back and thought about it, I would probably find a lot of similarities.
Yeah. But, one example that I thought about recently that hadn't occurred to me, and just reminded me of it when you were talking about drag racing earlier, is the tree, right? When like back in the day when I drag raced, we had incandescent bulbs, and so you would see the lamp begin to turn on, and then it was on, and then you'd see it begin to go out, and then it was out, and so anyone who's ever watched any drag racing on ESPN or done it themselves, that you'll see the yellow lights go. There's usually 3 rows, right? They go ding, 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 and then the green go, and then you're off, right? And if you press the gas when the green light turns on, you're already behind, because there is a delay in incandescent bulbs, right? And so the timers started when the green light begins to go on, not when it's on, right? So there's that whole thing. And so that is like that's where a lot of races are won and lost, is on the tree. And so you had to watch that tree and watch each bulb, and not just the bulb, but the filament. Like, can you see through your helmet, through your windshield, onto the track, and see the filament inside the bulb begin to burn, and that was what you were watching. And I did a lot of visualization on that, and then those sons of bitches changed them to LEDs, like right. And then it was a lot of visualization to recover, because there wasn't that it's going to be on, it's going to be off kind of thing. It was on, but that visualization, that specific visualization, and then shifting the gears, working the clutch and stuff like that, that's something that I spent a ton of time on. And I guess it's kind of like it's difficult to do in 3-gun, because there's so many things, and it's never the same track twice. Where drag racing, luckily, it's always a quarter mile, and maybe sometimes an eighth, but it's there's always that tree, there's always a 60 foot. There was that thing, but that is one thing that I realized just recently, that I visualized a lot back in my early 20s, was that tree.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I didn't really remember it until now, is that visualization. When I raced kind of seriously for a few years, bracket racing, and I applied the visualization quite a bit, and now it's just kind of coming back to me now that you kind of sparked that during this conversation. So my car, not to get too in depth with the racing stuff, but my car, the transmission release to make you go was hooked to a button.
Right, trans brake, right?
So, yep, trans brake. So when you let go, I mean, obviously there's a delay, like all the tolerances being taken up and everything, but when you want to go, you let go of the button, right? So I would visualize literally that light, even though they were LEDs when I did it, but visualize whatever light I left on when I wanted to release that button. I would literally see the light come on in my brain and let go of the button. And the same was the case with going down the track. Now my car shifted itself, but the real brief description for those that don't know on bracket racing is you pick a time that your car is going to run. So you don't have to have the fastest car. Say it goes a quarter mile in 10 seconds and the next one goes in 9. You leave the starting line at different times. So whatever you predict you're going to go, if both cars are dead on, you're at the finish line at the same time. So, however, if you go faster than that, you get penalized by losing, unless the other guy does it by more, because you got a bigger advantage on the start than you should have. So not only would I visualize the light coming on and making the car go, I would pick the spot on my opponent's car that would be right out my roll cage, depending on how fast they were and the different lengths of the cars. And that would be in my head on how to drive the car at the end of the track, of exactly what I want to see. And I would visualize seeing that and try to make it happen. So, yeah, when you ask if I apply it to other things, definitely. And like I said, I think that I would discover more if I really sat down and thought about it.
Yeah, drag racing is a really good example, and what you're talking about there with, looking out to see that area on the person's car that you want to see at the end of the track. That is the perfect example of like high stakes visualization, because you're going really fast at that point, and so you've got to imprint that in your head so you can easily identify it when it matters.
Yeah, you can't figure it out down there. Like
no.
Literally, you're talking about inches at. I mean, my car went 165 miles an hour in a quarter mile. Yeah, you're not figuring that. You can't figure that out down there.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're looking for and have that imprinted and try to replicate it. Not much different than a 3-gun stage, really. If you're trying to figure it all out on the clock, it's not going to be that good.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure, man.
You're going to figure it out prior and try to replicate it.
Yep. I love it. Well, that's a really good example. I'm glad we found that one, because that's a lot of people that are into 3-gun are either recovering or going to be gearheads at some point, and a lot of people can identify with that one. So I dig it. Well, Mike,
yeah.
I've taken up a lot of your time in the middle of your day here. You probably got to go recharge some soap in your machines and stuff like that. But I want to talk about 2020. So we're all we're kind of in this lull period in Texas. Everyone's trying to get me to shoot, and I'm like, nah, man, I need a break. It's my off season. But this is the planning. This is making goals for 2020. This is making schedules, flight plans, hotels, things like that. So what's your 2020 season looking like? And maybe give us some highlights, some things that maybe matches you're going to hit, or some goals you have.
I kind of have a bunch of matches. Well, not a bunch, but a good handful that I try to. If you look at my schedule from last year, you're gonna not believe me when I say this. I try to focus on quality of matches instead of quantity. Mm-hmm. And I'll try a new match and see what it's like. But when it comes down to it, a lot of times I want to shoot the matches that I mean, we all have different preferences on flavor of matches a little bit, but something that is well run and you're going to enjoy, and it's going to be worth it. Whether you're accomplish your goals at that match or not, it's going to be worth it, and you're going to have a good time. So last year, I kind of went a little crazy.
Yeah, we were going through your practice score on the way, before we got started here, and it was long.
Yeah, it felt like my fishing boat sat, which it did, and it felt like I was preparing to leave at work shooting, and then catching up from being gone, like all year. And my goal for 2020 is to stick with I'm not doing that. And part of that is, I think, if I want to be successful, whatever my goals may be for this season, I don't know. I really haven't set them yet. I don't know. But to be successful, you can't get burnt out. And I was kind of close to that last year, and I think everyone goes through that. So my plan is to try to take a couple months and hit a bunch of majors and really be focused on my practice and diligent on doing it frequently and effectively, and probably take a good chunk of time off, but not off. I'm going to shoot locals, but as far as traveling, take some time off, and probably ideally still practice, but dial it back, and then pick another period of time to really go hard again and be focused and pack my majors into kind of those time periods.
It's like creating little sprints instead of like one long marathon.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a little bit it's a lot for personal reasons, because there's things I want to do outside of 3-gun. I absolutely love it. I like seeing everybody, as we all do, but we all have other things that we enjoy too. Family, friends, for me, fishing during the summer, maybe just relaxing. I'm not so good at that. But maybe just taking a break every now and then. But it was kind of sparked by wanting to diversify my time and my hobbies a little bit and do other things that I enjoy. But I really do believe it's going to be quite effective as far as succeeding and working towards whatever 3-gun goals I have. Because it's going to be a lot easier to stay focused at a high level for a shorter period of time.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a good way of looking at that. Like the season is long and it keeps getting longer. It's like that old Garth Brooks song. But the UML Multigun Nationals. Wait, no, I said that wrong. UML Traditional Nationals is that was November, right? So that was just about a month ago now. That's way late. Okay. That's way later than I normally shoot, and then here in Texas, we've got the Texas Tune-Up that's coming up the end of February, first day of March, and that's way earlier than I would normally shoot. So like the season keeps getting longer, man. So
definitely. I mean, there's more matches, right? And there's a lot of quality matches, and so they have to. You got to put them somewhere. Yeah,
well, and it's hard to say no because it's so much fun, and and then seeing the community is all great and everything. But yeah, the each of the last 2 years, I've said the same thing. It's like, okay, well, less matches, more quality, and then just more ends up creeping in. But I like your plan, and I think you're onto something with creating the space for you to recover and then go and give it your all, then recover and go and give it your all. I like that.
We'll see. And like you said, there's so many quality matches you could shoot all year, no problem, and have a good match experience at all of them without a problem. There's so many different people that run great matches.
There's so many matches that I hear are great that I haven't shot yet, and there's so many matches that I have shot once that I haven't been able to get back to that I would like to. It's just an abundance of opportunity and options we're really fortunate to have, but it also makes it difficult to make that schedule.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see how good I am at sticking to it. We'll see.
Yeah,
that's the goal. I mean, you know how it is. You get kind of caught up, and especially now. I mean, you still have matches that sell out in minutes or hours these days, but with all the choices, there's a lot of amazing matches that don't sell out anymore. Mm-hmm. So you can say, I'm going to pack my stuff up and I'm going to go in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So that'll make it harder to stick to, but
and
see how effective it is.
I was talking to Chad Francis recently, and he was telling me that he's like, any major match, if you want to get in 3 days beforehand, I guarantee someone had to cancel their plans and you could take their spot. And I thought about that for a minute. I'm like, when you consider like 200 people in a match, there's got to be one guy that twisted his ankle at work or something like that, or just can't break away from the family or something. So it's
you usually see those posts every now and then.
Yep.
And there's some stuff that I've said, hey, I want to do that, and it's full. And they're not going to accommodate 20 more people because it screws everything up. But typically, if you want to do it bad enough, you can probably get in.
Yeah.
So that I guess it makes it a little harder.
Yeah, for sure.
To plan because you can, I mean, for me personally, I'll get caught up in having fun with it, and I want to do it again, right? And not. Club matches are different than majors, and it's a whole different experience. And so it'll be difficult to say, no, you're sticking to your schedule and you're not going to sign up for that match in 2 weeks and travel again. But I don't know. I'll be good at it.
I hear you. It's a challenge. Well, so you typically shoot limited, which is the focus of our show here. But you also shoot TAC, and I've seen you dabbling in open as well.
Kind of all the divisions.
Yeah. So what are you going to be primarily shooting this year or 2020?
A lot, still a lot of limited, I think.
Okay.
I enjoy it a lot, especially at matches like Gen 3 that are pretty long range heavy or even mid range heavy. I like shooting that dot. I do have an intention of shooting some more open, just because it's hard to not have fun when you have all the ammo.
Yeah. And
all the ammo and less reloading, and you just get to shoot everything. It's a ton of fun. My first open major was at Traditional Nationals back in November, and it's just fun. And I've shot it quite a bit locally, but so mostly limited.
Good.
And throw a couple, maybe one or two tack and one or two open big matches in there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Mike, really enjoyed having you on the podcast to chat with you about your mindset. What you think about the game, and how you've generated so much success earlier in your career here. So thanks for being on the show, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to give a final thought or piece of advice to the audience here. So if you have anything you want to say to people out there, now's your chance.
I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun. And really, in the end, I guess I'm going to give two, even though you only asked for one. As far as competing and improving, find the balance. I haven't done it yet because it's difficult. But like we talked about earlier, you go really hard and you can't sustain it, and you might back off to almost nothing. And then your skill level and your match results go down, and now and then you decide to go real hard. So try to find that balance, and if you're able to get anywhere close to it, I think it will lead to a lot of success. And as far as just advice in general, just have fun. I think a lot of us lose that, not entirely because every match is fun and all the people are great, but a little bit losing sight of that. This game is for fun. There are like 2 people or whatever. There's a very small number of people that are making a living doing it. So it's for fun. So kind of related to my traveling too much last year. You get kind of caught up in just wanting to go. And just remember that that's what it's about.
I love it, man. Those are great final thoughts. Both of them are important and related. So it's something that everyone can learn from. Mike, this has been awesome having you on the podcast, dude. Thanks, and good luck in 2020.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for listening to the 3-Gun Show. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for waiting. It's great to be back. Great to be back in your earballs every week. I missed you guys. Thanks for hanging in there. If you like this type of content, you can support us on a monthly basis for as little as $5 by subscribing on Patreon at 3gunshow.com/Patreon. You can also give your business to the companies that support the 3-Gun Show, including Vortex Optics, JP Rifles, and now Stag Arms. Heck, you can even call me there. Until next week, I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.